Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Pleiadian podcast. We are so excited to bring this episode to you as we're going to talk all things play. And we're going to discuss the different aspects of play and why it's so important in your spiritual journey, activating your spiritual gifts, stepping into leadership for deeper self-awareness, and how it portrays to really expanding and nourishing your relationships. This podcast is literally called Play. It's Play to Rise podcast. And Play is actually an acronym for Pleiadian Light Ascension Yard. And we're going to just share a little bit about how that actually came forward, because it was, of course, so divine, and also just kind of like little pieces just started to unearth as we continue to dive into building and growing and expanding what Ava and I are creating together. And so we were literally in a channeling session one day in a business meeting, which are always, these fun, like 3 to 5 hour drop-ins. And we knew that there was something to do with the frequency of play, but we weren't sure, because at that time we were like, is this just, about activating the inner child? Like it just feels like there's something so much more there. And we're going to dive into some deeper aspects of bringing in science into this and really understanding how play assists in our design, in the makeup of who we are and how we grow and expand. But we were in this meeting and I had written down the word play. And as I had written this word down, because we knew that this was going to be an important piece, my hand went to paper and I wrote Pleiadian Light Ascension Yard underneath play. And we had realized in that moment that play was like coming into the spiritual playground, that we're down here surfing consciousness together. We're playing in consciousness, that we came here to experience life in whatever aspect that looks like, and that we're always technically playing, even if we don't realize that we are. And we've really been in this deep dive to discover that, what does it look like to play in the spiritual playground? What does that look like for an adult to play? Because it's much different than what we would think of, even just activating play within the inner child. And so we're going to deep dive on this today. And Ava, I'm sure there's some more pieces that you would love to share in this as well.
Oh, this is just such a sweet story. I mean, you gotta just imagine, it's like late at night. I'm literally on my bed, kicking my husband out of the room because we're on a 5-hour business meeting. And DiYeena, who channels through me, is somehow involved in this, bringing through these important pieces, dropping these bombshells on the importance of play. And she's like, it just gets to be fun. We're asking her all these practical questions, right? Of like, well, are we meant to do a business? Should we do a membership? Should we like do a festival? Like, she's just like, just keep it in play, keep it in the frequency of play. It's all good. And like the more pieces that would drop in, it would just got clearer and clearer and clearer. And it was kind of like putting a puzzle together. It really felt like that at times. We just felt like we could getting more and more of these pieces. And I remember one moment in particular, Shiloh was we were putting some words to paper and trying to get some of these concepts out. And she had mentioned the inner child, and I'm just like, it's just not right. It's just missing something. I don't know what to do. It's just like, I can't, it's not the inner child. And like, I just like kind of went off on a riff on the inner child and how it's just really like constricting the frequency of play in the way that we're talking about it here on this podcast today, and the way that I was feeling it in that moment. And Shiloh, literally, you remember what you wrote? You literally wrote down in her notes, do not use word inner child.
I forgot about that.
It was just like, it's just been also, yes, it's been this rewriting of even the ways that we think about play, even as adults, and so it's like, we know what play looks like with children. We know what play looks like with adults that haven't lost it, right? Like we can kind of see that happening through creativity and art and different things like that. But we're really going to dive in and really expand this conversation. So you really get the full bandwidth of what this frequency is, because it's more than just an action in your body. It's actually a frequency. And so that's really what we want to dive in here today. So I'm really excited to go right into it. But the more that we actually looked into this, we started getting all these pieces from the channeling. And then we were like, wow, this feels really important. Like P.L.A.Y is like no joke, because P.L.A.Y is really serious. Yeah, all puns aside, but it felt like something so important. And we started actually looking into it a little bit more, and we started realizing, wow, it's not just in these channeled messages that we're realizing that P.L.A.Y is really important. There's actually a lot of science behind it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to dive into the science aspects. But before I do, I want to just share, I remember DiYeena saying in that channeled meeting, she had spoke into how P.L.A.Y is the next stage of the evolution of human consciousness. And what she was speaking into and meaning by that was, if you've been on your spiritual journey, you've been walking through the dark night of your soul, and diving into the shadow aspects. And she said that we're coming out of the depths of the underworld and out of those frequencies, and we've been unearthing so much, and we've been walking through the heavy aspects of clearing all of these programs and conditions and everything that's been placed on us. And now we're coming into the lighter frequencies. We're raising the collective consciousness, that frequency collectively and on the planet. And it's actually bringing us into these higher frequencies. And we get to do that through play. And I remember just being elated, because I was like, you mean in this next chapter, we get to play, and it doesn't have to be like this heavy, dark, like time that we've all known very well. And so, I just want to share that aspect, because there's a lot of chaos happening on our planet right now, and it can seem really hectic and dark, and we're all doomed. And really, when we look through it at a higher lens, we can understand we're actually vibrating out of that frequency, because we've already met it. We've already alchemized it. We didn't bypass it. We were there, and now we get to alchemize into higher. And so
I want to just really slow that down, because that's such an important piece for everyone to really hear and grasp, and almost really let go of any pieces in the mind that might still be holding them, like, no, is that really possible? Because we're so used to moving through, even within the realms of spirituality and doing our quote unquote spiritual work, right? It's like this, like she was saying, this dark night of the soul pieces where it just feels like, oh, we're gonna do this spiritual thing, and it's gonna be challenging, and but it's growth, and we actually are getting to a place in consciousness where we're choosing, and this is the key word here, free will. We're collectively moving through free will choice to experience a new frequency collectively. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's what's happening here. And again, we're not bypassing anything. We chose collectively to experience the dark night of the soul and to go through it in a particular way. And that's what we've been doing and going through collectively. Some, we're all having our different version of that. Mm-hmm. And now we're really coming into a completely new frequency where we're collectively choosing a new experience. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just share a really quick little personal story before I jump into the science aspect of this, because I was just sitting in a ceremony space, and Av and I were just. She was just asking me about sharing my experience before we hopped into this, and the elder that was really holding the space, he was in so much play and deep spiritual wisdom. And you can tell that he has walked his path in an embodied way. And I was moving through a lot of pain in my back, because I was having to sit for 14 straight hours on the ground around a fire. And about 7 hours in, my back was just on fire, in pain, throbbing. And I was moving through a really challenging experience. Yet I was able to still be in this heightened frequency of joy, because the whole ceremony was infused with the frequency of play. And so I would weave in of, oh, wow, I'm in a lot of pain in my back. This is challenging. And I also simultaneously get to be in a frequency of joy and play and dancing and moving my body. And so we're learning how to kind of move through both aspects of it, of wow, a challenge can be here and I can also be in play. We're holding the paradox, and we're learning how to really hold the paradox of all aspects of it. And that's one of the beautiful things about being in the human experience. It doesn't just have to be pain, grief, this dark night of the soul. We're also in this place of pleasure, joy, fun, expansive love, right? And so it's getting to experience all sides of it. And as Ava said, we've really, been experiencing the other side, and now we're expanding into the more. And so a little bit about the science aspect.
I gotta do one more. I gotta do one more. We promise we'll get to the science. We're not going to leave you hanging too much longer, but we just get excited. And that's part of the beauty of doing this with a good friend. It does get to feel like just sitting around a campfire, sharing some stories with you all. And I just felt called to just share, because both that story you just shared with that elder, and you shared a little bit more in detail of how he would literally just go, and like everyone's like in pain and crying and puking and whatever's going on in the environment, and he will crack a joke, and then the whole field is in laughter, right? And so how it's elevating the frequency. And those of you that have experienced, who've been on a pod, who've been listening before, or are been following us for a while, who have tuned into DiYeena, the Pleiadian that channels through, she has this magical way of taking some of the most painful moments in human experience. Like, people will bring up really like suicide, dark, like the heaviest things that the human being is able to even process or experience here on this third dimension of reality. And she has this way of being able to weave in and touch and hold these really intense moments of pain. Like, there's no bypassing whatsoever. It's really beautifully weaving through all of the pain and the suffering and the heartache and all of the real human experience that goes with having these forms, having these bodies, and being able to not only empathize, but really move through that and bring in this frequency of joy and levity in the same moment. And so it's like you've got tears running down your face. Your heart is breaking open. You're in excruciating pain. Like, the body is having its experience, and the soul in the body is choosing to move through the body's pain, the human experience, through the frequency of joy and play and pleasure. And it's like, it's almost incomprehensible because it is so paradoxical. And that is really how powerful we are as human beings that are having this multidimensional experience. We really do have the free will to be able to move through all these layers of consciousness and beingness in a way that really gets to be how we choose it, and it really can be that fluid. It really can hold that paradoxical of frequencies in the same moment. And so it gets to hold all of it without bypassing any of it. It actually gets to be more in the moment, right? And so some people will say, we've heard this, Shiloh and I, going over here, we're in this Pleiadian frequency, throw in play, throw in light, throw in love here, it's just like people be like, oh, you're just bypassing everything. Like, you're just going straight to play. They're not even being human, right? And so I challenge that, because it's actually the exact opposite of what we're teaching here. And so what we're really, really bringing into awareness is how we can actually be in these forms, fully embodied in all of our multidimensionality, being so rooted on this earth, and being willing to hold in these higher frequencies and have the same level of awareness in these higher realms of frequency as we do in the third dimension of the density, so being able to really move fluidly with all the layers of our multidimensionality.
Yes, so beautifully said. And if you know anything about Ava and I personally, you will know that the two of us do not bypass anything. We have met ourselves over and over and over again. And, the thing that, at least for myself, that always it's the light on the other side that I know. The what gets me through the challenging moments is knowing the paradox on the other side. to the depths I feel grief or what I've suffered through pain, I now then get to experience the other aspect of it, which is what collectively we're talking about. This pendulum swing from human suffering is going like this, and there is peace that is coming to our planet, and we get to experience that. And in fact, how universal law works is we cannot experience one side of the coin without experiencing the other side. And so that's what we're sharing. Like we've been collectively in it, and the pendulum is swinging. And that's what DiYeena was talking about this next stage of the evolution of human consciousness is in play. It's in joy. It's in peace. And so we get to take in a deep breath, and finally we've gone through the trenches, and it's time to be in this celebration of this new paradigm that's birthing right now, and it's birthing through us. Okay, how are we feeling? Should we jump into the science?
I mean, I think we've left them on a cliffhanger long enough, right?
Exactly. Okay, so how do I want to start this? Well, I want to bridge this by speaking of, even just the great paradox that we were talking about. And what really bridged my curiosity in this is learning that there was actually a study done in many different school systems, that were experiencing a lot of bullying for kids. And they decided to bring in, because they were understanding the science behind play and how it actually affects not only children, also adults, but affects us in our human biology in the way that the social constructs are actually weave together, and how that builds, especially as children. And so they did this study in these places where there was a lot of bullying. And what they noticed throughout an entire school year, and they continue to do this for many years to come to make sure that it just wasn't a freak thing or a fluke thing, is they actually brought in intentional play into these school systems. And what they realized is by bringing in intentional play in 1 year's time, they were actually able to bring bullying down in that school system by 40%. 40% is wild. That's almost half of the bullying that was going on in the school. And so through curiosity, I continue to dive deeper into this. Well, why is that? How does play affect allowing bullying to not really be a thing in school systems anymore? And the deeper science in that is playing actually activates, and it only actually takes 20 minutes of play, which will start to activate and expand and grow the prefrontal cortex. And this is how play then weaves into activating your spiritual gifts, your creative genius, your leadership skills. This is how it helps with different relationships, because the prefrontal cortex is the thing that helps with social behavior, impulse control, planning, reasoning, decision making. So if you're thinking of, stepping into leadership, and you want to be someone who's really skilled on thinking on the fly and creating a safe environment to feel for others to feel like, hey, I know that they can lead me, because whatever's coming up, I know they got it, because they can think on the fly. They can be in not only the left brain thinking logical, right? But the science also states that it not only the frontal cortex fires and starts to expand and grow, but it also activates the right side hemisphere of the brain, which is the creative center, right? And so as you're diving into more creativity, it allows you to expand what's beyond even the logistical, logical thinking. You can actually take a bird's eye view and come out of the box and see possibilities that maybe you were not able to see before. And this is all done through the lens of play, right? And they've also discovered that when in play, especially, not only children, but again, this is also for adults. When adults are in play, it actually activates the homeostasis. It brings in the regulation of that. And so what exactly does that mean? Well, homeostasis is, if you think of the things our body really needs or our being really needs, it's when we withhold or withheld something that's really important for us. Take water, for instance. So coming into homeostasis means that our body actually needs it just as much as something as water. And so if you think of, if you don't drink water all day, right, it actually like creates like a backlog, so that when you do get a glass of water, you're really thirsty and you start to drink even more water than you would have if you'd been drinking water all day. Same with food. If you withhold food, on the other side, when you finally get to a meal, you're really hungry and you would eat more than what you usually would. They're finding this with play as well. So when we have a backlog of play, when we have the ability to actually tap into that, there is even more that wants to come through, just in the way that we would drink more water. And it's because we yearn for it. There's a place of yearning, and the science behind the yearning is the prefrontal cortex knows that it's going to grow, it's going to expand, and that actually pours into you in a chemical basis, in a hormonal basis, in a way that it regulates our nervous system in ways that we can't even imagine. And so in these studies, they've discovered that play actually makes us smarter, right? It actually makes us more skilled in many different aspects. So thinking that, wow, bringing more play into my life can actually create more success in my relationships, in my business, in the way that I show up and creatively express myself, in self-awareness. This is an incredible discovery. At least it was for me, to know that, play isn't just something that we do for fun. It's actually very vital for us as human beings in so many different aspects. And so that's a little bit of some of the science that I've been studying and discovering, and I know that Ava has some pieces with that as well.
Yeah, and I just the way that you just summed all that up is just so beautiful, because it just really shows the magnitude of what we're talking about here, even through the lens of science,
Mhm.
right? And so we're going to kind of take this, and like the first thing that comes up for me is we're having this discussion is, well, like, what does it even mean? Like, what are we actually talking about when we say we're going to play? Like, what is that? I think we all have like a semi understanding of it, but what is it actually? So like, let's look at that a little bit, like through a couple different lenses. Like, first, through the scientific lens, there's definitions, of course, right? And there's not like a one agreed upon definition, but there are some characteristics, right? And so one that I found here that seems to kind of encapsulate several different opinions is that play is a spontaneous, voluntary, pleasurable, and flexible activity, and it involves a combination of body, object, symbol use, and relationships. Okay, so that kind of gives you a little bit of a context, and really, even from that scientific lens, I would say that Peter Gray really was one that kind of came in and kind of capsulated 5 different categories of really what it means to play. Like, what are the characteristics of play? And it's pretty widely accepted and agreed upon within the science community that this work of Peter Gray, and those five characteristics. The first one is that play is self-chosen and self-directed. So it's place free. You can do what you want. You decide what you want to do, when you want to do it, who you want to play with, when you're done, right? It's the freedom to play and to quit, right? Like, it's really, it's self-directed in that way. So that's the first one. Second is that it's intrinsically motivated, meaning that the journey is more important than the destination, right? So it's really valuing the moment rather than the end result. That's a really big piece of it, right? And then actually studies have shown that the more there is a goal, like an end result, the less it actually is play by definition. Like, there's actually something very connected between how goal oriented something is and how much it's considered in the frequency of play, which I found really fascinating. It's also guided by mental rules, but those rules also leave room for creativity. And we see this with kids. They'll say, even as an adult, sometimes I'll be like, my kids will come and be like, oh, okay, what do you want to play? Okay, what do you want to play? Like, that's the first question when you want to play. What do you want to play? And so there is this kind of self-organizing, agreed upon container or boundary that's put upon the play regulations, but there's still free form in all of that. right? And so the fourth is that it's imaginative. Like play is in the mind of the creativity. It can go in any direction, right? That's the fourth one. And then the last one is that it's conducted in an alert, active, but relatively non-stressed frame of mind. This one's really key. So what is that actually saying? To me, that's saying that play happens when somebody feels safe, right? Play happens when there's a safe container for it. And so that's where I can see how in our society, if we look at even the piece around it being safe, and like it just, that one in and of itself, honestly, is just like, okay, I can really see how we've really gotten a little bit sidetracked from that frequency, right? It's like how much of our world feels so unsafe. And you can look at just all the different aspects of it, that what creates safety for a person or for a human being, and how much of that is really being tested into the basic levels of existence right now. So these are some of just like the scientific ways of looking at play through that particular lens. And then as we were really going into this, we were like, we were just getting ready for this, and Shiloh's like, well, what's coming through? I don't know how accurate this is, but what's coming through, the channel definition, is that play gets us out of the left brain and into the right brain. It's opening that creative center, even through observation. And Shiloh, I don't know if you want to share about that, because you really had a really beautiful example of that.
Yeah, I'm a very visual person. So as we're talking about the science aspects, right, it also lights up the right hemisphere of my own brain, which is my spiritual gifts. And that's how that weaves in as well. And I had this really beautiful visual of, this old man, and he's sitting with his grandchildren, and he's sitting in a chair because he actually doesn't have the ability to stand up and to move around and actually get on the floor and play with his grandchildren. And just by sitting and observing them in play, it brought joy to his being. He had a little smile, and he didn't actually have to be playing with them at all. Just by him being in the space and observing them in play, it brought joy to his own heart, which actually activated the frequency of play within his own being, because he was in the appreciation of the frequency of play. And that actually ignited something within him that brought him into these higher frequencies that we're speaking of. And so, it even, makes me think of like when we're watching something, right? When we're watching a movie, we can be in this frequency of joy and play when we're seeing something that ignites that within our own hearts. Or even, I had another example of being out in nature and witnessing like two birds playing, or a couple of animals that are out playing. Visual coming through is like squirrels, right? They love to play in the trees. And I don't know how many times I've had so much joy just like watching these squirrels like jump from branch to branch. And meanwhile, I'm just standing there, not moving at all. I'm not actually the one who is physically playing. And so we can think of it through so many different ways, and how it activates in the right brain can be a vast number of ways, especially as we become adults. It doesn't have to be in the same way that we played as children. It's like, what lights you up? Like, as we're speaking about this, what is something that's like, I actually really desire to go and experience that. And maybe it's actually just going out and sitting in nature and watching animals, or maybe it's playing music or drawing or writing or singing or dancing. Whatever that means for you, it's going to look so different for everyone. But just understanding that play is actually so vital for us in our growth, in the evolution of human consciousness, through our human journey and through the spiritual lens as well.
Absolutely. And as you're saying that, the next thing that it triggered for me, was because we were just talking about all of this and we were kind of piecing these things back together. And I was like, well, then because this came through her channel, it was like, oh, it's the left hemisphere moving, it's opening up the right hemisphere of the brain. That's what it is to be in play. And so I was like, is that true? And I was like, well, I don't even know enough about the right hemisphere of the brain to know like what's all included in that. And is that where, like, how is that connected to the bullying story you were just telling? So we're literally going back and researching, and it turns out that the right brain is actually the side that's really connected to social engagement and the emotional creativity and all of these things that are actually directly connected to our social world and to how we relate to other people and how we relate to each other and how we relate to ourselves. It's self-awareness as well, which self-awareness ultimately does form a circuitry with other people and is very deeply connected to relationships. So this right brain energy is really the activator that is really responsible for a lot of these aspects that we've been talking about here. And it really can be rooted back to these neurons and these synapses in the brain on this right hemisphere really being activated and turned on and enlightened and enlivened. And so there's a frequency in this particular area of the brain. And if you think about it like a hologram, it's like your body is this hologram for the entire universe, right? So it's the macro to the micro. You're thinking about these are the particular spots on the body that are illuminated in this moment of being in the frequency of play, which is the frequency of joy, right? And so that is then reflected and magnetized throughout all of creation. It's being rippled through. And that is the frequency then that is moving through consciousness. And it's through this right hemisphere of the brain. And, I had an experience of really being in this deep place of really kind of tapping into this frequency of play. And what came through for me in that moment, and this is more from the channeled spiritual metaphysical lens, is that play is the essence of your pure soul moving through consciousness in the frequency of joy. Did you catch that? So I'm going to say that again because it's really important. So play is really the essence of your pure soul moving through consciousness. And that's the play that we're talking about here. So you're lighting up literally neurons or synapses in consciousness, which is, you can look at it through the micro lens of what's actually happening in your physical brain. That's actually happening throughout all of creation. And that is actually happening through the frequency of joy. So when you really look at it through that lens, then you can look at, well, all these different ways that play happens. And then you can really understand how this man sitting on his porch watching his grandchildren play is activating those neurons in the brain. It's activating the frequency of play. It's activating that right hemisphere of the brain. That's activating this essence of his pure soul is igniting in that moment. He's in this place of purity, of just seeing the world through his own pure soul. And he's ignited in the frequency of joy. And so play is really that simple. You can be at an art gallery looking at a beautiful piece of art. You didn't create it all, but you're there admiring it and something's happening. There's activity happening in your brain. There's things that are lighting up in the sacred geometry, the patterning of your brain that is actually activating and rippling out through all of consciousness at all the dimensionalities in all directions. And so it's really amazing when you start to think about how this actually works, both on the physiological, science-based neuron brain level, and how that actually translates into our sacred geometry, multidimensional levels of reality that's actually playing in through this hologram that we are all living. It's pretty fascinating.
That's so fascinating. And just as you were sharing that, I pieced some other pieces together, because another statistic that we had that we wanted to share with all of you is that, we were talking about in the beginning, right? We've been going through the dark night of the soul. We've been in the trenches, right? And part of that is we're rewiring the neural pathways, right? We're actually rewiring the synapses. There's new firing and wiring that's happening together. And there's a statistic, there was a study done that it actually takes 400 repetitions to create a new synapse in the brain, unless it's done through the frequency of play. And then it only takes 10 to 20. Think about the difference in that 400 times opposed to 10 to 20. Now, what I just bridged together is, as you were talking about play connecting us into the essence of the pure soul, that makes sense on a level of, okay, well, we can see the science base on it, right? The neurons are firing, wiring. Oh, wow. When we do it through the frequency of play, they fire and wire much faster. I don't know with the exact percentage difference of that, but it's a lot, right? And what I'm understanding is through the multidimensional lens of the soul and the essence of the soul. It's because through play, we're tapping into that pure essence and we're remembering who we are. We're remembering that we're not all of these things actually that have been placed on us. And so when we're not in the frequency of our pure soul, when we've forgotten who we are, then of course it's going to take 400 times to create a new synapse. But when we're in the frequency of play and we're remembering who we are because we're in our true essence, it's just easier. It's of course this is the way that it's supposed to be. And our brain literally just reorganizes itself and fires and creates these new superhighways that just become the new way of being for us, which is really not the new way at all. It's remembering who we truly are. It's releasing everything that we're not.
Absolutely. And the story just popped up in complete relation to that, just for to say the same thing through another lens. And it's connected to that story I was just sharing around when I was really feeling myself in my pure essence, in my pure soul, and I just wanted to play. And I was in a room of other people, and I was like, I wonder if anybody else is available to just play in the pure soul, like without any of the stuff. And so I was going around the room and I was like, I'm looking for anyone that wants to play. Do you want to play? And they were like, yeah, what do you want to play? I was like, well, here's the rule. I was like, I just want to play with your pure soul. And there's this one brother of mine in particular that was just such a sweetheart. And he was like, well, I'm paraphrasing, but he was like, well, I've got all this unworthiness. And I was like, well, unworthiness can't come and play. Like, it's just got to be your pure soul. We got to just, can you just put unworthiness down? Just, you can leave it right there. You can pick it up as soon as we're done. Just put it down for a second, and then we can go play with our pure soul. And then you can just go back and put it on again. But like, just take it off for just a minute. And he had a really hard time taking off that backpack of unworthiness just to play with his pure soul. Like, he was so attached to that identity of unworthiness that he was really just like not willing in that moment to come play in his pure soul with me. And so it's just another way of looking at that, because it's like you look at it through the lens of 10 to 20 reps versus 400. What is creating those extra 380 to 390 repetitions? It's because it has to go through these filters of unworthiness, or I'm not loved, or abandonment issue, whatever the stories are that we've put on the labels that are actually not the true essence of who we are. All of those things, these repetitions have to move through all of those frequencies. And so it's like, if there's thick walls and thick layers of all these other frequencies, it's literally like if tuning to a radio station, you have all these other frequencies in the mix. And so you're not getting a clear signal. It's the same way. And so the more of these stories that we haven't actually worked out in our own being, the more of these pieces that we haven't actually cleared out of the field, the more there is going to take some of those higher repetitions to kind of create those new synapses in the brain, because you're not connecting into your pure soul in those moments. So play is it's a fast track, especially for those of you that are really rising leaders that are here and you're leading the way. Play is like, it's really like a super tool in your tool belt. It's like one of those like magic wands that everybody should know about, right? Kind of thing, where it's like, you can do this through play and you get to like just fast track through all of this. It's really that powerful. And so this is really the science behind that, and a little bit of the metaphysical brought into it and bridged, because that's what we do.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's so fascinating because I feel like when we enter this space together, right, and whatever it is that we're creating, I feel like, you know, the reason why, you know, the brand of everything that we do, you know, we not only do this podcast, Play to Rise podcast, but we actually have a membership called Play. And I feel like every time we step into this arena, we'll call it an arena, right? It feels like we are playing in the spiritual playground. And just in, you know, before we started speaking on all of this, I had all the facts, I had all the things written down. But just as we're sharing and weaving this together, it's just like ding, ding, ding. I can feel the synapses actually reorganizing in my brain, which is why I was like, wow, I just pieced this together, which to me now I'm like, it's so clear why it would be 400 to 10 to 20. But before we started this, I was like, I wonder why that is. Like, it didn't like click until we were in here playing together. And so, this is just a real life in the moment example of how weaving together through human consciousness, through this lens, can actually activate and reorganize and bring us into the deepest remembrance of who we are.
Absolutely. And what's also coming through here as you're sharing that is, even through both of these definitions that we just listed out of what play actually is, channeling actually fits into those definitions. Mm-hmm. And, channeling fits into both of those definitions. So we've been here literally playing, being in the pure essence of our souls, bringing through just the purest frequency. And it really is in that vibration of play. It really is in that vibration of joy and love. And so it's just interesting how all of this is piecing together, right? It's just really fascinating. And is there anything else that's coming up for you, Shyla, before we maybe bring in DiYeena of the Pleiadian family to hear what she has to say on the frequency of play?
Yeah, I would love to bring in DiYeena. Absolutely. It feels like it's time.
Yeah, I was feeling that too. So for those of you who are tuning into this podcast for the very first time, or for those of you who haven't met DiYeena is a Pleiadian. And she is actually a being and a consciousness of frequency that channels through me. So I'm a trance channel. And what that means is that I simply take a little bit of a back seat in my body, and I allow that this being to come through and speak through me. And that is a conscious and agreed upon relationship that we have. She's actually my gatekeeper. And I trance channel a few other beings as well, including Magdalene and St. Paul and a few more, Mother Mary. And but she's really the main one, and she's really the most fun, honestly. So she's the one that's going to want to come in here and really share, especially considering that we're talking about specifically the Pleiadian Light Ascension Yard play. And she was really the one to help us really kind of formulate all of this and piece it together. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and I will just go ahead and go right out, and we'll put you in touch with DiYeena of the Pleiadian family.
Beautiful.
Here we go. Greetings, this is DiYeena. You see, other Pleiadian family. You see, here, you see, to play, you see, because we have been just doing a little eavesdropping, you see, on the conversation, you see, we are right here with you, you see, bringing in all the information as well, you see, so it is almost as if we've been chit-chatting the whole time, you see, because the Ava and the Shiloh, you see, been really getting all the downloads, you see, so we have the easier job here today, except maybe to do a little bit of joking with you all, entertainment, you see, perhaps a little bit more questions or bringing together some of these pieces a little bit, you see, but really we will say job well done to the two girls here, because you really hit it out of the park this time, you see. And we are going to also, you see, for those who are new, maybe do not know, DiYeena here, we always take a sip of the earth, you see. This is a little bit of gift from Ava to DiYeena, you see. We always say thank you to her and drink whatever she brings us, you see, which is a little risky, you see. We do it every time, you see. We never thought about that part. It could be a little risky game, risky business. We definitely have the trust built to trust that she will give us something tasty every time, you see. So let's just make sure that we have a good one today.
Beautiful. I'll take a sip of earth as well. I have some beautiful tea over here.
It's a very good habit, you see, for the community listening as well. You see, you can have your own sip of earth, you see, to bring to the podcast, you see, to the little container, you see, make it a little cozy moment for yourself, you see. Really let yourself drop in, let it be a little sweet moment for yourself. A little time out, you see, from the other parts of the world, you see. Get yourself nice and grounded and centered in the Pleiadian frequencies. It's very fun. It's very fun. So for those who are maybe new, we're feeling that there's going to be some new ears on this episode, you see, for you. So we're just wanting to say a few more parts, you see, about that we are really, people are wondering, who are the Pleiadians, you see? We are really the hilarious beings, you see, that really like to play on the frequencies where you could say we all have heard of the star system. We hope you all heard of us, you see. The star system of the Pleiades, you see. Well, beings come from that frequency, you see. So some in the lower densities that can be on the actual physical, what you call the planets, you see, around frequency about 6th dimension or so, you see. But we are really working with the dimension of 13 here, you see, as we come through in the communication. You see, so we'll just share a little bit about that, you see. So it's the frequency of living ma, you see, living ma, which is spiral of knowledge, you see. So it contains a frequency here that is also connected to the frequency of 13, connected to the cycle of life, you see, connected to the cycle of reunion, of birth and death and rebirth, and all of the pieces, you see. It's consisting of the whole cycle, you see, consisting of all creation, you see. So all exists within that, you see. But not all beings get to come and say hello, you see. So very specific ones, you see, very specific. So we're really in a different frequency than just, and we do not just let anyone come through, you see. So it's very, very special, very, very special. So we like to say that we like to come and make the jokes, you see, at least DiYeena, because that is really like the crazy grandmother, you see, who just cannot keep her mouth shut, you see, because she's just too old to care anymore. This is really the frequency DiYeena here, you see. We're just not caring so much, you see, in that particular way, because we care so much that we get to just bring the love, but we get to do it so much in the lightness and the levity of a little bit of joking around, you see, because it is really that lovely. It is really that lovely. So the Pleiadians here have been with your planet for a long time. Long time, oftentimes bringing in the influence, the energetic support frequency to those on your planet over the cycles of time who've had more of the influence, you see, in the positive sense, you see, on your planet, you see. So the ones that we could say, like Jesus, for example, you see, we don't want to ruffle any too many feathers. We are really in a good frequency here with the play. Would maybe be getting too off topic. You see, we're going to have some twitching the channel, what you call switching the channel. You see, but no, it is really many like that. And just to say that name, but many. You see. And not to say that they are all Pleiadians or anything like that, but that they're influence, that we are here supporting to really make sure that the balance is staying on your planet, making sure that there is still a balance, you see, because as you know, there are both the dark and the light forces on your planet, you see. So the Pleiadians are here to help hold the balance, make sure that the light and the love is not getting a little bit overridden, you see, at times, you see. And really here in this particular moment, you see, because your planet's going through a similar process as the Pleiadians have gone through, you see, with their own ascension process. You see, so your Earth itself, the energetics are also shifting. And so all the beings that are connected to that, this is the humans, you see, in case you forgot, because you're too busy on your phone, you see, you are connected to the Earth, you see. All of you like that, you see, are also shifting in frequency. So it is really a big deal in the cosmos, you see, or have lots of eyes and ears of planet here sitting around eating the popcorn and wondering how the humans are going to do it, you see, and what timeline are they going to choose, and what are they going to do this time, you see. So we are really on the edge of our seats, watching all of you very proud, you see, like a proud parent watching their child, you see. I like that, you see, giving the love and the support, letting you know that you are really doing a great job here in the human form, and knowing that love always wins, you see. This is also the frequency that we bring forth, is a reminder that love is always winning, you see, even in the moments when it feels like it is not, you see. So that is just a little bit, you see. We're going to get back to the frequency of play, because this is why we're here. You see, so frequency of play, Pleiadian Light Ascension Yard, you see, this is really the container that you find yourself in here, even on this podcast. You see, there is membership, you go check it out, you see, get tuned in, you see, because it's really tuning into, there's many parts to it that all connect to the whole. The frequency of 13, you see, all connecting back into the frequency of play. Frequency of joy, because it's a frequency of wholeness, you see. So this is really important. So the frequency of joy, frequency of play resides the high frequency. You could even say 13th dimension, you see. So what it's bringing in here is all of these layers of frequency that are connected into your pure soul. They're connected into your pure soul. And it creates the frequency of wholeness, because now you are able to go all the way up to the 13th level, 13th floor, you see, going up the elevator, so to speak, of your own consciousness, of your own being, saying hello to all the layers on the way up, you see, saying hello all the floors, all the dimensions, you see, but you are really creating a frequency of wholeness because you're giving awareness to all of you, you see. Not to say we stop at 13. This is not by any means the end point, you see. But it is a very important container, we will say. So there is always more because you are infinite in your multidimensionality in both directions, you see. In all directions, really, because you can always go another little shift, and all of a sudden you have an infinite more to deal with, you see. But it just goes on and on and on, you see. But really, the 13 is really this special little pocket within the formation of your Earth frequency. You see that it is created in. You see, so it is really important for you to be in honor and in right relationship and right balance with those frequencies of the 13. You see. So this membership taps you back into that, you see. It gives you a little bit month by month, moon by moon cycle, you see, on the 13, you see. And all the different frequencies that are going to help to create that frequency of wholeness within yourself. Isn't that fascinating?
It's so fascinating. And the frequency of 13, I mean, we do a whole podcast episode on the frequency of 13. And so that's another one that you're going to, if you like and resonate with what we're sharing on this, you don't have to do anything, but I really invite you into checking that out because it blew our minds, and we just feel like that information is really important for the collective right now, which is why we've created the membership to really bring us back into the rhythm of 13 and to activate these dormant parts of our humanness and how we're evolving into the true essence of our being in so many ways. And play is such a foundational frequency of that as well. And DiYeena, I'm just like piecing this part together as well, just as you're sharing. It's my understanding that we're, here as we're evolving through human consciousness, we're starting to evolve into these higher dimensional fields where the Pleiadians have once been. It's almost like as we're evolving, the whole universe is continuing to evolve. And it's my understanding that we're starting to evolve into the Pleiadian frequency, which, just being in your energy, I say this all of the time, I have a hard time not having a smile on my face. It's like there's an energetic shift when you come into the field because of the Pleiadian frequency. Has so much love, it has so much joy, and there's just this essence of play that cannot be denied. And is that why play is an important aspect for us right now? Because it's evolving us into this higher aspect of who we are.
Well, that's very, very insightful, you would say, you see. And it is almost like the laying of the pathway. You see, the Pleiadians have walked this path before. You're correct. So it's a path of consciousness, you see, of playing consciousness, you see, that the Pleiadians have been through, you see. So it's almost like, like we were saying, you see, like our children, you see, watching our children grow. It's like that. And the power, you see, is really the activation of remembrance into more of yourself, you see. So the play frequency is a frequency that is in your form. It is in all of creation. It is part of the original blueprint of the human being, you see. So it is a specific code within your DNA, within your body, within your physicality. There is a frequency, a code of activation that happens in the frequency of play, you see. So it is encoded in your DNA, the frequency of play. So what happens when we, you can say, when we only use, they say all this junk DNA or the gray matter in the brain, you see, so to speak, you see, these parts of the human being that are apparently not useful, you see, or junk, or we don't really know that much about, you see, or we haven't quite cracked the code. Well, that is exactly what is happening. The code has not been cracked. The code has not been activated, you see, because it is not being used. So it is not useful because it is not being fully used, you see. So that is the part of the human being where you get to be in the free will of choosing which frequencies you desire to experience. You see, and we're going to take a little sip of the water just to clear the throat. That's better. We have to deal, you see. We do not tell the other body what to put in. You see, we just drink what she has. You see, a little to make a little throat like coated like a nice, like it's like a warm creamy beverage. You see, so it's just creating a little bit of that. But anyway, so it is really your choice of a free will of what you choose to light up in consciousness. A little bit what the Ava was sharing, what was coming through, you see, is how we play through the field of the multidimensional hologram. You see, so as we are choosing through free will, we are choosing to activate certain points on the sacred geometry of creation. So it is all geometry. It is all sacred geometry. If you were to see it with the bird's eye view, you see, you are able to zoom out far enough, you would see these patterns of light, you see. And the light lights up when we give the awareness or the focus, you see. So that is really all it takes, is that shift in consciousness of the awareness. This is why when you say you have the observer having the right brain lit up simply from observing the frequencies of play in others, or a creation that has been done through the frequency of play, such as artwork, you see, it is still lighting up that part of creation. It is still lighting up that aspect of the sacred geometry of creation. You see, so it is really, that is the free will happening. You see, and it is really activating that part of the DNA, that part of the code of creation that is in the human being. You see, that is actually a very high frequency. It's a very high frequency, you see. So we are used to playing in some of these lower, more dense frequencies, you see. And you have a world that likes to keep you there in the fear, in the depression, you see. We forgot to name the quote, you see. There is a good quote you were going to say about about depression being the opposite of play, you see. You remember this part, my Shiloh?
Yes, let me just find it here. I have it written down somewhere.
It's okay. We don't need to put you on the spot, but this is really the point, is that it is not that the play is the work is the opposite of it, the play, so to speak. It is that it is depression that is the opposite of play. And why is this so? You see, because play is really a frequency. It's a frequency within consciousness, you see. So as is depression, you see, as is fear, you see. So we are used to playing in these other frequencies. You have a lot of it in your world, of fear and depression and anxiety and worry and on and on and on. And these are all very dense frequencies encoded in the form, you see. The higher you go with the frequency, you see, it's activating different dimensionalities of your consciousness, you see. And it's rippling out in the consciousness, and it's affecting the entirety of the cosmos, of the entirety of creation itself. So what does that mean in practicality? Well, you have to remember the interconnectedness of all of everything when you play in this world, because when you are activating the frequency of play within your own coded DNA, within your own code of creation, within your own form, what that is doing then, you're activating that code. You could say it's lighting up certain parts of your brain, you see, in the physicality. But then what is happening, because even that is not so physical, we know this to be true, right? So it is really simply a certain mirror of dimensionality that is then mirrored out infinitely in all directions within that particular point of creation, that particular part of the geometry. It is lighting up that sacred geometry for all humans and for all beings in creation. It is lighting up the remembrance, consciously, subconsciously, of the frequency of coded DNA, you see. And this is true for all the codes, you see. This is why it's important, and how we are so powerful as individuals, quoting individuals, you see, as the fractals of consciousness, how we interplay with the whole, you see, because it is a note within the symphony. So you choose to play the note of play, the frequency of joy within the symphony of creation. You have a fractal over here that is playing in joy. You see, that is a note, that is a certain layer of sound that is affecting all of the symphony, all of the notes in creation, all of the fractals, all of the humans, all of the beings from all of the dimensionalities are hearing, we'll use that word very loosely, hearing, not necessarily with physical ears, but they're experiencing the resonance, they're experiencing the vibration, the frequency vibration of that frequency of joy, that frequency of play, you see, is activated within the whole of creation. So when you are playing, you are positively affecting the entirety of the experience of creation as you know it, you see. You are experiencing, you are connecting into the experience of the oneness by putting in a positive input, so to speak, a positive note within the symphony of creation. Isn't that fascinating?
It's so fascinating. And I love the way that you express and explain that, because, I'm just tuning in here. I found the quote, the actual quote is, "The opposite of play is not work, it's depression." So earlier when, I was sharing about the universal laws of polarity, right? When you would think of when you would look at one spectrum or the other side of the coin for play, you would think it would be work, but it's not, it's depression. And so through that quote, and what I'm hearing you speak on, DiYeena, is that when we're in the frequency of play, it's not only tapping us back into the pure essence of our soul, which is how Ava was describing it. It's allowing us to remember who we are and embody the power of the powerful creators that we actually are, that we get to then imprint into the spiral, the sacred geometry of all creation. We get to put a positive impact into that, as we are all, like, to me, playing can be as simple as being consciously aware of what we're creating, right? Being in our creator energy. And the opposite of that, when we're in depression, we're numbing out, we're checked out, we're not present, we're not here, we're most likely not in our power, we're giving our power away. And it's stripping us from who we are and truly what we came here to do, and how we came here to be, how we came here to express. And so what I'm even tuning into on another layer of it is being in the frequency of play is also being in our powerful creator energy.
Exactly, my dear. You could say that it is definitely being in your power, because to be in your power means to be in the essence of your pure soul. You see, it's to be in the essence of who you are, in your power, you see. And so if you are in the essence of your pure soul, and you're in that frequency of play and joy, you see, that is the opposite of depression, which is to be disconnected from your soul. You see, you are disconnected from your essence. You see, when you are in the frequency of depression, there is a disconnect of who you are. You are disconnected from knowing who you are. And so there is a sadness there. There is a feeling of loss there, you see. And it is literally a loss. It feels like you are lost. You see, you do not know who you are or where you are. And it is because you are not connected into the essence of your soul, which is your power, because it is the wholeness. It is your wholeness of your particular fractal in all of consciousness, which is also continuing into the frequency of wholeness. When all souls are dancing in their purity, playing their note, you see, their pure note from their pure essence, and they are in the frequency of joy, you see, the beauty of it is that every soul is still playing a different note, you see, but it's creating a symphony, a beautiful symphony, because it is pure essence. It is pure frequency, you see, not distortion, you see. So it is really beautiful when we all choose to show up in our fullness, in our power, as you would like to say. But really, it is in your pure essence, in your pure soul, you see. That is really you, without the stories, you see, without the stories of who you think to be, or what you were told to be, you see, or the energetics of the emotionality body, you see. And it is to say that we are all of it, you see, but there is also, you could say, you are all of it in the sense that all of consciousness and creation exists, and all of consciousness and creation comes out of the 0 point and out of the infinite nothing, you see. That is also consciousness, you see. You are all of that, you see. You can name that in that way. And in that sense, you can say, oh, I am this emotion, or I am this thought, because in one broad stroke sense, you can say, you see, but then you are not talking on the level of individuality. You are not talking at the level of soul. You are not talking at the level of fractal or essence that we are talking about here. You are not talking on the level of the ego, you see, so to speak. So what we are saying then is that if all the egos, and we are saying that in a positive way, like all the fractals, all the souls come in their wholeness of the purity, knowing what makes them work in tick in a particular way. You see, what is their unique soul print? What is their unique sound? You see, the essence, you see, the essence contains a beautiful note, a beautiful blueprint that is uniquely stamped differently than every other fractal in creation, you see. And so that is what we get to play with then, is when we all show up in that unique blueprint fully, not trying to be another, you see, not trying to show up what we would say half-assed, you see, or trying to copycat, you see, or anything like that. You have a thumbprint, you see, that is only yours, you see. And that is true for all the fractals, you see. It's very unique, you see. So it is your job then to really not be fearful, to really be in the fullness of your fractal, to not be in to be the fullness of your essence, you see. And when you are so brave to be in the purity, you feel the safety to be in the purity, and you feel the freeness to be in that purity, you see, then we get to play in consciousness together. And that is really the essence of this container, play to rise. We are rising in consciousness through the frequency of not only play, you see, but it is one of the frequencies, you see, the Pleiadian frequency here. We are playing through consciousness, and we can play wherever we choose. That is the free will part. We get to play in consciousness. So you can choose to play in some of the denser frequencies, you see, that we were just naming. You can choose to play in some of the higher frequencies, you see, we've also named. You see, you can play wherever you would like to play. And we get to play together, you see. We get to play seemingly alone if we choose, you see. We get to play seemingly together if we choose. We get to have all these different experiences. But the secret ingredient is really being in your fullness of your individual fractal, your individuality, the wholeness of you, you see, in all of it. And it requires your activation of this particular code of play within your own form. So it is important then that you figure out the ways that you like to play, you see. And again, this can look very different for many people. For some of you, it does look like maybe a similar action or thing that maybe you did in your childhood, and that feels still very good for you. For others, it looks more creative, like maybe painting or running or dancing or playing, or however you're doing it in that particular way. For others of you, it is in the observation of the play, you see. So it is going to the art museums. It is observing the nature, you see. It is going for the fishing or something like this, you see. Or it is simply just watching a beautiful play on the live playing, you see. So something like this, you see. Everyone has a different way, but what is happening is the same. It is the same activation of light, lighting up the sacred geometrical patterning in consciousness. You see, you could say it's activating certain hemispheres and certain neurons and synapses and all these things. This is also true. But that is a geometrical pattern, layered geometrical patternings to create the density, to make it appear like there is form. You see that there is actual physicality. It is simply layered geometrical patterning, you see. So when you were to delayer it a little bit, pull it apart, you just see pattern after pattern after beautiful pattern, you see, lighting up. So this consciousness lighting up, you see, in this particular way. So it is important that all fractals are lighting up this particular part of their own being and consciousness to activate the frequency of wholeness within the individuality of their own fractal, so that they are able to be in their pure soul essence, you see, fully, you see. So it is encapsulating the wholeness frequency of your soul. And as you are coming into that wholeness and you're expressing that wholeness, that is what allows us to really play through consciousness in a way that is really we will say a little more fun, you see, personally. Some may argue that point, but we can say that they can have that way too, in that both are true, you see. Some may see more fun the other way, and that is because their soul is doing a different dance, you see. But from the Pleiadian perspective, we will say it is more fun.
Yeah, so it's really about being in our authentic expression in whatever way that looks like. And every time that we are in our authentic expression, we are lighting up the different aspects of the hologram. Like we're here playing our part in it. And in order to play our part, we're really being asked or invited into being in our highest and most authentic expression.
Precisely. The authenticity word is a good one, you see, because it is a buzzword, first of all, you see, it's good buzzword, you see. But it is also really tapping into exactly what we're talking about here of the authenticity is really what you could say is the pure soul essence, you see. Very similar in the frequency.
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to say it in that way just to share that with the community so we could bridge that for them to really make sense of that. You know, another interesting aspect is I was watching a documentary about a month ago, and it was on Blue Zones, and they were interviewing this small village in Japan, and most of the average age length in this small village was like 110 years old for how long people lived. It was one of the oldest, or one of the places where people really thrived into old age, where they lived the longest. And in the interview, they went and interviewed a lot of these people, and a big part of what they continued to say, or the one overlapping thing that was said the most, was that they never lost the frequency of play, that they continued to play even into being 100 years old. And they believed every time the person interviewing them asked, like, what is the secret? And, you know, there's many secrets to, you know, clean water and food without chemicals and toxins, and you know, really clean organic food coming from clean organic soil. And another aspect was play, and a big part of that was community and playing in community, that they made sure that they were creating these community events and coming together and playing together, which is also why, you know, Ava and DiYeena being a part of the Play membership, as well as creating this community space, creating a place where we can come together, we can play in consciousness together. And, you know, when I'm tuning into that and I'm like, okay, well, why is that? Like, what is that spark? And what I'm tuning into is that what it feels like is by being in our pure essence actually brings us into tapping into more of our life force. Because what I heard you say was, when we're in the true essence, we're no longer in the distortion. And so when we're not in the distortion and we're in our pure essence, I got a visual of our physical bodies lighting up, being filled with light, being filled with vitality, and that vitality tapping us directly into source, which taps us directly into our life force, which then would allow us, our physical cells, to thrive and prosper longer than if we were not in that frequency.
You're precisely right. This is exactly right, my dear. And we will just expound upon the one point that you made when you were talking about that group, you see, was the part in community, you see, and bringing together, being in community and having, well, why is that important? You see, we all are, with so many of the human beings right now on the planet, especially in the more developed places, are starting to realize the importance of coming back to communities, you see, to really thrive, you see. This is really starting to become a big movement here on your planet, you see. And more are asking, where are my people? Where is my tribe? You see, I'd like to be in community. But what is really happening there on one level is it is creating, when you are around community, what happens then is it gives purpose to the individualized fractal. You see, what is the point if we have a whole fractal floating around in the cosmos, just shining a big note, you see, being all whole and whatever? You see, it doesn't have any big meaning necessarily. We give it the meaning by surrounding ourselves with other fractals and souls that we get to play through consciousness, we get to interact with, you see, and that provides meaning. That gives purpose, you see, because then all of a sudden this fractal and this fractal get to dance together, weave together a story, you see. So we weave the stories together through the fractals, through being whole fractals of experience, you see. And then we get to decide what kind of story we'd like to create. This is playing. This is playing in consciousness, you see. We're doing it all the time, you see, but it is really the other fractals, or what you would call the souls, or the people, the human beings, whatever you want to call it. The community that is creating the experience of meaning, the experience of purpose for the individual, you see. So whether we all can do our soul work, you see, or our soul play, you see, whatever you want to call it, our growth, coming into wholeness, you see. But then what is the point if we have no one to share it with, if we have no one to then dance around with, you see? It's like, okay, we are this shining, beautiful soul. I'm all whole and ready to go. But what am I going to do now, you see? It's meaningless unless we have other fractals, you see. That is the whole point of creation. You see, this is the ability for the one to dance among many, you see, and have the experience of the many, you see, and have all the different ways to be able to play. It's very, very important. And you are exactly right in how you frame that, of it really creating this vitality within the physicality of the form, because the physicality is really the final stop, so to speak, in the experience of the multidimensionality in the light body. So if it's all working optimally on the higher dimensions, well, then the physicality is so beautiful. It is so beautiful. You see, it's a very, very balanced fractal, you see. So it creates this sense of really embodying the power that you're talking about, the vitality, the life force, the energy is in balance, is in harmony, is in union, you see. So it's very, very good. It's very, very good.
Beautiful. I love that aspect of it. And just, what I was getting visually as you're speaking into that is, the whole reason why oneness wanted to expand into fractals in the first place was to experience itself through all of these different individual lenses. And also, another piece that came in around community being really important was that as we've been fragmented into these fractals and we've forgotten and we've been in the story that we're alone and we're separate from one another, and when we come back in a community and we have that mirror of the union, it reminds us that we are not separate from one another, and it reminds us of the true essence of who we are, which at the core of us is unity, it's oneness, it's love. And so it brings in the deepest remembrance of, oh wow, we're not actually doing this on our own. We are interconnected, and we are all one in experiencing these individual fractals together.
Precisely, my dear. It gives you the experience of awe. It allows you to be in awe of creation, of your own divine miraculousness, really, you see. So it's very special, you see. It's very, very special. So all of this is very, very important, you see. So it's coming back into the recognition that you are a playful being by nature, you see. And so some have very forgotten this part. So it is important to remind all the souls that are listening here, you see, that you are a playful being, you see. Maybe it's framed a little differently than it used to be for you, you see, but it is really true. So finding the ways that really light you up, and that is literal. They say, well, how do you play? Well, what lights you up? What turns you on? This is really, these are less metaphorical than we realize. You see, they are very literal. You are literally lighting up your light body, bringing in wholeness through the light that is coming into the form, through what is turning you on. You see, what is inspiring you into that creative life force energy. You see, so it is really powerful. You are coming into that power of your creative force because you are a creative being. You are creator itself, you see, and you have the potentiality. You are creating everything in every moment, you see. So it's coming into conscious relationship with your power as creator, you see. So we talk about how this play is really playful and all these things, but it's really the essence is really activating your powerful creative potentiality, which you can then weave into your manifestation techniques and all of these things like this that you like to talk about in your spiritual circles and whatnot, you see. We know about all these things, you see, too, you see. But you have an understanding here how this all weaves together. You see how it all weaves very good.
Yes. And, it's so interesting, DiYeena, because in some of the documentaries that I was watching, what it spoke into was all life on Earth plays, and that humans are the only life on our planet that actually in adulthood can forget how to play. But when we look at the animal kingdom, not only mammals, but insects, even reptiles and fish what they've noticed through observation is they all play from, you know, the time that they're babies to the time that they're in full adulthood. They actually never stop playing. And so we can look to nature, we can look to the animal kingdom to remind us that even as we get older, even as we become adults, you know, I think that so many people feel like, oh, playing is just for children, but it's actually the truest essence of who we are, because it taps us back into our essence. It taps us back into our life force. And, you know, that's why we're here really sharing this information and bringing this to the collective at this time. And so I hope this lands for all of you. And I just hope that you take something from this and it not be in the analytical information. You know, the information is great, but really tuning into how has this made you feel? What has this sparked within you? That flame, that sacred flame that is within you, has that allowed it to ignite a little more, or is there some curiosity to how to ignite that flame within you? And so really just inviting you all into deeper self-discovery of what does play mean to you and how can you start to infuse that into your day-to-day life.
That's very beautiful, my dear. We will say one more part, you see, that is maybe going to be intriguing for certain people because of just where you're at in your consciousness on your planet right now, which is that when you think about the hemispheres of the brain right now, you see, the play frequency specifically is really in the frequency of the right hemisphere, which you could consider, you have the feminine, the masculine as well at play here, you see. And where we have been in consciousness is really leaning in more to the masculine side of the brain, really giving more of the energy there, you see. And we have seen that in our world, you see, about what you have been creating is in the very masculine frequencies. You see, even all just skyscrapers, for example, very masculine in frequency, you see. You see what we say here? You see, so even the ways that we are coming back into union within the frequencies of ourselves in the balance of the masculine and the feminine, you see, is reactivating that feminine aspect without losing the masculine important parts, you see. We're coming into the union, coming into the balance. So the frequency of play is in the wholeness, you see. So it is really coming into the balance of the feminine and masculine within yourself, you see. So that is also another piece to really be aware of as you are bringing in this frequency of play, is that you are really playing in these dynamics of creation itself, because all of creation, all of life is formed through these polarities, through having a masculine and a feminine energetic, you see. So all of this is really frequencies of creation. And so as you're playing, are you coming into the wholeness within your own self? You see, are you activating the balance within yourself? You see, to come into the frequencies of play, you see. So this is really an interesting weave of it all, you see, because it is not just one or the other necessarily, because what happens then is, because the more you come into the wholeness frequency, you see, the more that the entirety of the spectrum begins to light up, not just a few of the synapses over on the right brain. That's more common where we go first, you see, but the more holistic our approach becomes, the more the bird's eye perspective we begin to take a look at as we are in the frequency of play, the larger we allow ourselves to step back into it. You see, the more we recognize that it is actually both, you see, and we are weaving into the both. We are weaving into the union of the wholeness, and really being able to play in all aspects of creation on all ends of the spectrum, you see. And that's what allows you to really be free, is to be able to move in any direction, you see. And so that is really, really profound when you begin to understand how it all operates, how it all works within yourself, you see, because it is all a reflection, you see. So we'll say it like that.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for just bringing us even deeper into the understanding of, you know, we really are here creating wholeness within self and wholeness and harmony back within this planet, as it's so within as without, and it gets to weave through the entire universal system. And so thank you for being here with us, DiYeena. I'm just so grateful every time you grace us with your presence, and I'm sending so many blessings back to you and all of our Pleiadian family and all of our family in the living Ma, and just a lot of gratitude and many blessings for all of our listeners out there. This podcast wouldn't be what it is without all of you, as we really are a family here. And we're creating, just by being in this space together, we're creating that community space that we've spoke about as well. So thank you, DiYeena, for being here with us.
Well, it is reciprocal. You see, we bring it right back to you and all of you as well. If the listening ears, we say, go check it out. Go check out the membership. Be a part of the community. Get involved, you see, because it requires all of us. You see, you are all important. You see, so do not do feel like you have to do it all alone. You see, come and receive the support. We are here for you in that way. So come be a part. We get to be connected in with DiYeena even more when we are in this field together, you see. So come and connect. It's like sitting around campfire listening to your crazy old grandmother all the time talk. You see, very, very fun. So come and do if you feel so called, you see. But we send blessings to all of you humans on the planet who are really showing up in the light workers, you see, who are really holding the line of what it means to really be embodied and really walk on the earth with really sturdiness of love and light, and really the inspiration for others, that it is safe to be in the world, that it is safe to be yourself, and that it's important to be your full, thriving human beings in the love, in the light. We bless you all, that you all are in your shining, shining souls here on the planet. Blessings from the Pleiadian family.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, DiYeena. Welcome back, Ava. DiYeena just at the end was sharing about the membership. And so just for anyone who's interested in coming in and experiencing our community, we have many different levels, but at least come into the free level of the membership, where you can come into some free energy updates. We planted a little seed of the Power of 13 podcast. You can only get that on our membership because we dive into some juicy topics on it. I'll leave it at that.
To say the least.
To say the least. And so we have so much goodness in the membership for all of you. And it really, the heartbeat of it is community. So if you're looking for your tribe, this landed for you, come join us in the membership, and we'll put some information down in the show notes. So if this resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe, so we can continue to rise together on this ascension journey.
Blessings, everyone. We'll see you next time.
All right. Bye, everyone.